We're going to be talking Red Hawks basketball with head coach Brad Korn. The Red Hawks actually have a rare Monday game. They will be playing later tonight at SIU Edwardsville. We'll talk much more about that. But if you have not made plans for lunch, please let us invite you to stop on out at Wings Etc. We're in the Cape Girardeau location, and this note will be in Jackson next Monday. So if you're coming, do you know that you don't even have to come to Wings Etc. to enjoy their terrific menu because of the DoorDash feature now. You can get Wings Etc. delivered right to your front door by using DoorDash. You just download the app, set up your account, take you a couple of minutes, and Wings Etc. can be on its way. And that includes their full menu with their revamped burger lineup. They have wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs, and much more. And if you're coming for lunch, they have daily half-pound lunch specials that start at just $7.99. Good food, great times, and the home of the coaches show, Wings Etc. Let's welcome in the Red Hawks head basketball coach, Brad Korn. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing well.
Kind of odd to do a show on game day, but it's a short trip to Edwardsville, and I was trying to figure out why they're waiting around until 8 o'clock. I didn't realize SIU's women will be playing a game at 5:30, so that's why the game got kicked to 8 o'clock. But it's weird to – I know the Morehead State game here was at 8 o'clock, but that was national television. That's why that game was at 8. I thought it was odd to play at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I was talking with the head coach at Edwardsville, Coach Baroni, and we were actually trying to play the game even earlier before I think it was sometime early last week is when they rescheduled a women's game. And so initially it was going to be 7, and then obviously the women's game bumps it to 8. So long day. But after the show, we'll go to shoot around, and then we have pregame. Then we'll hit the road, get on the bus, and so it's just kind of it's late, but it gives us time here to take care of things that we need to here, and then really not too much out of routine for what we typically would do for a Murray game or a Martin game. So we were initially probably going to plan on going up the night before on this when this game was originally scheduled for a Saturday. So we'll turn it into a day trip and get off the bus and play.
So actually, the weather affected what you did with UT Martin. Normally that's a day of game travel trip, but that was not what happened, right?
No, yeah. Obviously the winter storm warning was coming in, and obviously you have to do. It's your job, your obligation to get there and play the game. Unless you obviously can't for emergency reasons. So we went the night before, which like you said, we wouldn't normally do. We tried to beat the ice. We left at about, I think it was about 1 o'clock, right when it started to hit Cape, just to get ahead of it, and got down there, and then just kind of did a flip of what we're doing today, actually. So just did that and got down there at the hotel. The power went out in the hotel. I think the lights flickered at our shoot-around at Martin. And supposedly the game was run on a generator. They moved the game up. That game was supposed to be later, too, 8 o'clock. We moved it up to 4:30. And so it's just that, unfortunately, that time of year when you're in a kind of a bus league like we are, roads and ice, that stuff can always kind of pop up and happen. Remember a year ago at Murray, we postponed the game and moved it because of the ice that we had here. So that stuff is always happening. And then fortunately, everyone's learned how to be fluid with COVID and changes and everything else. So it's just another one of those things that you add to it, and you don't make an excuse, and you go and play. So thankfully we got it in, and thankfully we got home.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of that trip is 2-lane road.
Yeah.
And ice and on a bus, and it's always a concern.
Yeah, our bus driver was pretty confident that he could get us home, and then obviously the women came home right before us, and touch and go in some spots, but they said it was good, so we hit the road and we got back with no problems, thankfully.
All right. Then you're safely at home against Eastern Illinois on Saturday, and you win the game 63-56, and we talked about it after the game. That is 7 wins in your last 8 home games, and the only game you lost, you had a 3-point lead with 30 seconds left and lost in overtime. So, boy, you're really starting to defend the Show Me Center floor.
Yeah, it's been nice. Obviously, I think everybody has that goal coming in, protect home court, and we didn't do it early in the year. We lost at home Youngstown and Arkansas State, so it's nice to be able to find your footing, especially late in the year, especially conference games. You take care of home in your league play. That obviously is going to put you at halfway mark. 9-9. Provided you don't you go try to steal some on the road, because road games are just so hard to win. It doesn't matter who you're playing or when you're playing them. College basketball road games are difficult. So the more you can take care of home, you're just going to be able to put yourself in those conversations late in the year and put yourself in the upper echelon of any league, especially for us and where we're at. So it's been nice for us to be able to see. I think we've been able to see crowds grow. I think our guys play with a familiarity, a comfort level, and it's been good because we actually took care of home a little bit towards the end of last year too,
right?
In the way that we had played. So it's good. We're getting where we're trying to go with it, which has been nice to see.
Boy, with these new box sheets, the box scores, they've changed them from the old ones, and they used to say attendance on there. Did you hear an attendance number?
You know what? I did not. I did. Is it up in the upper right? I think they switched
it's game time and game duration and the officials.
Oh, okay.
I know. Usually you got attendance right down here at the bottom, but it's okay. But it surprised me how many people were there, considering all the snow that we got. I mean, travel isn't exactly easy when you get that much snow. But it was a nice crowd, and they were into the game.
Yeah, snow and ice, which makes things even a little bit more challenging. But yeah, it's great. We've talked about it all along. We have one of the better venues in the league. I think we have a great town, people that want to support a good brand of basketball, and I think hopefully people are seeing that and supporting these players and the way that they play. And everything is you're always going to have ups and downs and bumps along the way. But again, I feel that we've really the last 3 weeks we've played a really good style and a brand that we can see ourselves being. Not just 3 weeks, but every single game and week on week, month on month, year on year.
You mentioned playing in a nice venue. I'm sure you remember playing in the Show Me Center as a player. I don't know how long it had been since you were in there, but when you came for a visit to see the Show Me Center, did it surprise you how nice it is? Because the building was open in 1987. I mean, it's starting to get some mileage, but they did a whole facelift a few years ago with the video board and, put in all new seating and new sound system, new lighting. Did it surprise you when you got here how nice of a venue it was?
Yes and no. From the standpoint of I had seen it before, and was pretty impressed with the way the setup of it. And obviously our offices are up top, so every time I come down for practice, you kind of get that upper view, and you just get the whole ambiance of everything. It feels like a basketball arena, and I think that's what you want. As a basketball player, you don't ever want to feel like you're just in a field house. There's venues out there that you kind of feel like you're just in the middle of nowhere. When I was a player, we played in northern Iowa in a dome. So you never really want those kinds of feels. So every time you walk down for practice, it feels like a basketball arena and what a basketball arena is supposed to look and feel like. And so I think that's you want that familiarity, and again, I think our guys have taken to it and how we've played at home. And again, now we just got to keep getting people in those seats, and it really can become one of the toughest places to play in the league.
And when you recruit, your facilities are so important. I mean, no offense to Eastern Illinois, but it's got to be hard to recruit to that building. It's like a high school gym versus the Show Me Center. How much of an advantage is it in recruiting to have facilities?
Yeah, it is, because it's one of those, you're either part of the have or the have-nots, and that's the name of the game in recruiting is our facilities. And then not just our Show Me Center, but you look at what our Success Center is too, where our fuel station is, and Ms. Brooke, our academic advisor, is here with Evan Morrison. And just so the academic success center, the weight training, the fuel station, those things are all important, not just the place that you play, because obviously you only have X amount of games there every year, but now it's every single day that they're going to the weight room, that they're going to academics, that they're going to the fuel station. So do those facilities match up as well? And ours do. They've done a great job with that. Coach Knapp and Brady have done a phenomenal job of committing to that side of it as well, because it's not just where you play, it's also where you practice, where your guys go to academically, and because there's so many other areas and facets of the player experience that you have to commit to in order to put yourself in a competitive arena. And so to match up the Show Me Center, we do have those other what do you want to call them, other
facilities
and other extras that you have to have in order to compete and to stay relevant, really, to where you want to be.
I think that's a great point because the player is only going to spend so much time inside the Show Me Center.
Right. Just like football, they're playing however many 5-6 home games a year. Well, now they have to have weight room. You have to have all these other different things that help the player. Not just help the player be able to perform in that venue, and so we have those things that match that as well.
I know you had it at K-State. Were you pleasantly surprised with how modern the weight room is? They just revamped that a few years ago, and the players. You talk about where guys spend a lot of time. Well, the weight room is a place where they spend a lot of time.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, when you bring kids in for recruiting visits, obviously you take them all around, and so if you're a recruit and you come here and we show you Cape, we show you downtown, we show you the city, it's like, okay, well that looks really nice. That's a nice area. I can see myself living in a community like that. Then you take them on campus. It's like, okay, here's a nice campus. Everything's in place. It's close, but it's not too far apart. I can see myself being here. Then you take them into the arena. It's like, okay, I can see myself playing in the Show Me Center. And so they can see themselves being in all areas and all facets of our visit and everything that we would show them on a visit. And I think that helps now when it comes time for them to make their decision, because a lot of times you go to certain places or they may not show you a particular spot, and so you just always have that little bit of doubt or question maybe about a particular place. Well, I can't really see myself playing in that arena, or I can't see myself in that dorm, I can't see myself living in that community. To me here, when you bring a family in and a player, I think they can see themselves in all of those places and all of those areas and having success in it. So I think we check a lot of boxes.
So the game on Saturday at the Show Me Center, unbelievably, you held Eastern Illinois, and this is not one of their best teams, but they're riding a 2-game winning streak. They won at Martin, a place where you just got beat. And they beat Tennessee State, who is right behind you in the standings. So Tennessee State is going to be a factor in this race in terms of seeding for the OVC tournament. So they had won 2 in a row, but you held them to 15 points in the first half. That is hard to do to a Division I school.
Yeah, and as the coach, I thought we could have held them to 13 or 11 just because we gave up 4 points late there on offensive rebound, and then I forget what the other one, maybe it was 2 free throws. I can't remember exactly, but we played really well. I was encouraged by that because we didn't defend very well at all against Martin. And so just to be able to have that quick turnaround and get recommitted to what has really helped us find our way here in the last 3 weeks has been our effort and intensity and toughness on defense. So it was good to see that show itself in the first half right away, really not let them get a ton of confidence early on. And, we had good shots. We probably could have scored a little bit more to give ourselves even more margin. We were up 19 at half. I thought we could have probably been up more. Just our offense wasn't clicking as much. But, again, how can you be that upset with giving up 15 points in a half?
I think your first 5 field goals in the game, if I'm not mistaken, were 3-pointers. I mean, you guys came out really hot. Then you slowed down. But, boy, getting off to a hot start, getting a lead, how important is that for the psyche of a team? Really important, especially because of the game prior. We didn't play well at all in any facet, really. We didn't play well offensively. We didn't play well defensively. We didn't play well energy-wise. We didn't play well toughness-wise. We didn't rebound well. There was really no facet of that Martin game that we played. There was one good one. You scored 20 points off turnovers. I think you outscored them 20-6 in points off turnovers, but that was about the only good category, right? Yeah, I'll let you find the silver lining in that one. But it just wasn't a very good game, and it happens. And but again, we're able to turn the page and get back to what we were accustomed to the weeks prior. So to me, again, that was the most important thing, was be able to bounce back, because, again, it's not always about who you play or record. Tonight you may look at Edwardsville record and think, oh, well, they're this, that, but they've been in every game. It's not necessarily who you play, but when you play them. And Eastern was coming off the 2-game winning streak. They just won a road game. They're starting to find their way. They'd kind of changed styles and played a little bit of a slower pace, and obviously we want to push a little bit more of a pace. So that was a concern. And how are we going to respond with the way that we played? There wasn't much that we could say, okay, well, we can take this from the Martin game and apply it to the Eastern game. We almost had to act like that game didn't happen and go back even more to the week prior and be like, here's where we got to go and bring this to this game. So that part was a little bit worried about that, concerning.
But again, our guys came ready to play, and Eastern hit a little stretch there in the second half where they found the rhythm a little bit offensively. We turned the ball over too much, 16 turnovers. So,
and that's not like you. I mean, you turn the ball over the third fewest times of any team in the league. You take care of the basketball.
Yeah, and I think we just kind of got lost in the game a little bit. I think that we just thought that we could just make a pass across court and we'll just shoot it just because, and we're up, and the game to this point has been okay, and no problem. We're winning. We're going to win. And so I think we just got a little bit lost in the game that way and got a little careless with the basketball.
Boy, you had a 22-point lead. You end up winning by 7. They did make a run. And, you know, it's human nature sometimes you see teams get up big and then all of a sudden they start playing a little bit differently, and it doesn't matter what the opposing team's record is. You know every team is going to make a run at you, and they did.
Yeah, they did. And there was a couple times there, and that's the trust that you try to have and build throughout your team and throughout a season. You know, they cut it. I believe they went on maybe a little 5 or 7-0 run and cut it down to 12. And it's like, okay, you know, who's on the floor at the time? You know, is there a play or a player that you feel, okay, I trust this. Let's find our way through this. And you know, everything doesn't have to be managed with the timeout. Everything doesn't have to be managed with the substitution. You know, you don't want to make knee-jerk reactions all the time, and try to keep some flow and some consistency and some learning lessons. But and I think we came down. I think Eric Reed maybe hit a 3 at that point after he had missed maybe 4 or 5 in a row. And so, just trying to continue to grow confidence in them and the players that are on the floor, and not have to micromanage every situation, because there's going to be some times, especially next week, we go on the road for 2. You're going to have to – we got tonight and we have Thursday on the road. It's like you have to find some – they have to be able to figure it out sometimes on their own too. You know, everything can't be managed by a timeout or a substitution. Sometimes you got to get it corrected as it's going on so you can become better as the season goes on, even in February.
You know, you did a good job on Paul Bizamana because he had really been playing well. He had scored over 20 points in 3 of his previous 5 games. You hold him to 4 of 10 shooting and only 12 points. I mean, he was one of the hotter players in the league when he came to the Show Me Center.
Yeah, and I think he had 22 in his game, prior to our game. And he was a big reason when they hit that little stretch in the second half. We lost him a couple times, and I shouldn't even say lost, Eric. He just had a little bit more space than he had in the first half, and that's all he needs.
He hit 2 big threes at the top of the key.
Yep, and they hit one right out of a timeout, and they went right back to the play that he had made the 3 on before, and we call it a tag if he was rolling up to the top of the key, and we stayed down by the free throw line a little bit more to hit the 5-man that was diving. We call that a tag, and so we tagged too much, and he was able to get loose a little bit. But again, it just a player to his caliber and the way that he had been playing and shooting the basketball, 6 points in a 12-point game or a 14-point game is a huge swing.
Boy, and they've got a guy named Sammy Friday the 4th. He's 6'9". He is a big cat. He was not a factor in the basketball game.
He wasn't, and he had been playing really, really well. Obviously, you win 2 games in a row, people have to be playing well for you, and those 2 guys were playing really, really well. And Sammy's a veteran of this league, been around forever. And he had been, before we had played him the first time, right before that, he was leading the OVC in field goal percentage. And so we were able to get him in foul trouble. Manny did a very good job post defense on him, defending him on the low block. Never really let him get into a rhythm. He got in foul trouble, which was huge because obviously they don't have as much depth. Their rotation isn't very long or deep. So that was important because, again, you're worried about Bizimana and you're worried about Sammy Friday, and then Clements can get it going, and he hit a couple threes too in that stretch in the second half. So they had a couple of pieces there, and obviously Coach Simmons is going to put them in position to be successful. And like we said before, the way that they had controlled pace and slowed the game down and try to make it more of a half-court game. And once you limit those possessions, the score, one team can't really get too far away from the other.
Clements didn't come out of the game. He played 40 minutes. Have you ever seen a point guard dribble as much as he does?
No,
he's got to lead the league in dribbling.
It's part of what they've gone to is more of just he keeps it in the middle of the floor and they just high ball screen. And that's part of what they're changed, the morph that they've done with their team to give themselves more of a chance. They were playing more possession basketball now with a depleted roster a little bit. Now they're slowing things down, keeping it in the half court, and that's kind of what they do. They put Bizimana, who can really catch and shoot and roll replay situations, and let Clements come off ball screens, dive Sammy Friday so he can get angles in the post, and that's really just kind of how they've been playing. They're just very methodical with it, and obviously it's given them a chance to be competitive.
Dribbles an awful lot. And, Manny Patterson was in foul trouble. I mean, you were in foul trouble in the post. Yeah. He got 2 first-half fouls. Sam Thompson got 2 first-half fouls, so you had to bring in Chase Thompson to kind of, anchor things there as you were in foul trouble. That was the only time you were in foul trouble. You only whistled for 15 personal fouls in the entire game. You had to like the way that you did stay out of foul trouble.
I did, and I like the way that we were really on par with like our switching. Dylan and Nigel, Chris, all of our guards were because they do a lot of back screen type pin down. Coach Simmons does a lot of motion type action, so you have to really know what's going on and communicating switches. I thought we were just really in gap. That we defended. Obviously, you hold the team to 15 points and a half, but we were on point. And you don't pick up fouls when you're in the right position. You always obviously pick up fouls or turnovers offensively when you're out of position or you're not where you're supposed to be. So we were, again, as bad as we were against Martin, to come back and be that locked in and disciplined on defense was very important. And again, the more disciplined you are, the less fouls that you're going to have.
I know the one thing that you probably look at on the stat sheet, first of all, you only shot 13 free throws, but you missed 7 of them. I think you've gone from first to third in the league in free throw shooting. All of a sudden, you've just hit a little hiccup with free throws.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what that is. Phillip missed 2. At the time, he was off the technical. He was our highest field goal guy or free throw guy at the time that was on the floor. Eric Reed was the best, but he wasn't in the game. So, I don't know what that is. Lack of focus, maybe late in game, late in February. It all comes down to, who has the most mental fortitude and really just muscle memory and reps. And so we probably got to do a little bit more and make it, because we do get fouled a lot. It's part of what makes our offense go is being able to score points from the foul line. So we've got to be able to knock those down, especially on the road. You got to be able to steal points and find points other ways because now mid-February, everyone starts taking away your sets, everyone starts taking away your actions. They know you better than you know yourself, and so now being able to manufacture other points that they can't defend is very, very important.
They've got a veteran coach in Marty Simmons who had some success when he was the head coach at Evansville, and he was given a technical foul in the game. We're going to talk about that technical foul when we come back. We've got to take a timeout. We are at Wings Etc. in Cape. It's the Red Hawks Coaches Show with Coach Brad Korn on SEMO ESPN.
Sports Bar, Wings Etc. in Cape.
Frog in my throat. Apologize. Don't forget, Wings Etc. has daily specials, food and drink specials, so make sure you check that out. Their famous appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos, their deep-fried pickle chips are a favorite, and, of course, high-definition televisions with the best sports programming, including the National Football League. They always have the NFL ticket. Lots and lots of college basketball this time of year. If you're a National Basketball Association fan, you can watch the games right here at Wings Etc. And did you know that they have over 70 items on their menu that are not wings, especially the new burger lineup, their wraps, salads, and other favorites. And if you would like to come in and pick up your food, you can order online. Come in and pick it up, or use the DoorDash app on your smartphone or your tablet, and you can get Wings Etc. delivered right to your front door. It's Wings Etc., home of the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Good food and great times. We'll be in the Jackson location, by the way, next week. Coach Brad Korn is here now. There was a technical foul called on Marty Simmons, the head coach of Eastern Illinois. He was not standing too far away from you. Did you even know that a technical had been called? Did you hear what he said to the official? Because it clearly was something that he said to one of the referees.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear it. Actually, when the whistle blew, I was wondering because we were in the midst of transitioning. And so we had just gone on offense. I can't remember exactly if we had scored or not, but they were coming down, or they got a rebound, or whatever the case was. And all of a sudden, you hear the whistle, and I'm looking around. I didn't hear anything from him, and he wasn't out of the box, and I didn't hear any words, so I wasn't quite sure what happened there.
And it did not really affect things because you missed the 2 free throws. Yeah. So, I mean, you didn't really get a chance to take advantage of the technicals, which oftentimes in close games can flip momentum in basketball games. How many times have you seen that?
Yeah, it's well, I probably was on the way of getting one myself down in Texas, but it was a close game, and it just was a horrible play that I thought took a possession away from us in a tight game. And so it's like, you always got to be careful. There are some times where you are strategic with what you do, but I don't think Coach Simmons was trying to be strategic with that. He must have just said a magic word.
Who is the best coach you have ever seen at working officials? Because it is a gift if you know how to do it right.
Yeah, only because I was at K-State and I've experienced Fall Gallen, I'd say Coach Self is pretty much a master at that. He's got a way and a temperament about him, and if you ever watch their games, I think they play tonight actually.
Right.
He does a good job of covering his mouth too of whatever he might be saying, but he's probably one of the best.
So, Bill Self, how intimidating do you think it is to come to Fall Gallen? SEMO played there a few years ago. The women have played there a couple of times. So I've been in there 2 or 3 times calling basketball games. How intimidating is it for an opposing team knowing, what Kansas's record is at the Phog?
I think probably the thing that you can't prepare for, because you're in venues, all the time and playing in hostile crowds, but I think it's just the level of the noise that you can't prepare for. You literally can't hear anything anybody is saying. And so you have to be more connected and more on the same page than ever before, or any other type of environment. Even in other hostile environments, you can kind of get in direct traffic a little bit and call plays or yell out defensive coverages or whatever it is you're doing. But in the Phog, you can't hear anything. It is so loud. They pump the music through the speakers. It's the loudest thing I think I've ever. There and BYU are 2 of the loudest places I've ever been.
Phog Allen's the loudest place I've been. Have you ever been to Cameron Indoor Stadium? Have you ever been to Duke?
I have not. I've not been there. I've not been to the Dean Dome. I've not been to those two places.
And as far as the nicest arena that you've ever been inside, you got a list of venues where you kind of say, boy, this ranks pretty high.
Oh man, That's a good question. When I was at SIU, we were there when Creighton's building opened at the time, at the Quest Center, I think it was called at the time, and that was at the time for the Missouri Valley, 16,000 or 17,000 people. That was a pretty impressive building. I was there in the Missouri Valley when the JQH Arena opened at Missouri State, a beautiful building. That's a good question. Probably one of the more impressive ones was Louisville, the Yum Center. I didn't realize how big that was. Tennessee's massive. That is a huge building.
Right.
A lot of seats in there. And then BYU, when I was a freshman, we played at BYU, and I'll never forget that, just that environment. They've got however many people they pack in there, too. So some pretty good venues out there.
As far as OVC venues, and I've asked people this before, and it may surprise them sometimes. What do you think is the biggest venue in the OVC? What arena seats the most capacity?
That's a good question. Just because of we haven't been there this year. They had everything pushed back a year ago, but I could see where maybe it'd be big. Austin Peay maybe.
Austin Peay is big. That's one of the biggest. Believe it or not, Tennessee State seats
really?
The most when they open all the upper seating, and they've got a track up there. They do indoor track, but it's actually Tennessee State. That surprise. I know a lot of people I've told that over the years. It surprises them.
Yeah, it makes sense with the end zones because they don't have the end zones out, or at least they didn't the last 2 years behind the baskets. They didn't have seating back there, but I could see where that would be because there is a lot of space back there.
So Eric Reed, if I told you before the game that you'd only have one player in double figures, would you say, man, we may not have won this game? But he was the only guy in double figures, 21 points in the game, 5 3-pointers. Looked like he got his stroke back a little bit.
Yeah, and I think he was 5 of 12 overall. And, again, we said it after the postgame, if Eric Reed hits 5-3, you're taking all those threes. And, again, I thought we took good shots. I thought that our offense was okay. We just didn't make as many as we probably could. And, again, I think a lot of that, too, had to do with the turnovers. But we weren't able to get – I thought that we would able, especially we talked about it earlier, Eric, I thought that with Sammy Friday being in foul trouble, I thought we'd be able to go into the post a little bit more. But we had a couple turnovers in there. We had a couple opportunities where Sam had his hands on balls but didn't bring them home and convert like I thought we could. So I thought we left about 10 points out of the paint from our bigs that we could have got. That probably helps open things up, probably limits turnovers more, probably opens up more threes, which all those things roll on top of one another. So probably wouldn't have believed it if you'd have said one guy in double figures, but I thought that we did play well enough offensively and had good shots, and we just turnovers and then the missed free throws, and then, like I said, the big guys, when we got the ball in the paint, not necessarily the big guys, but when we got the ball in the paint, I thought we could have converted a little bit more to help alleviate, because the more easy points you get, obviously it opens everything else up. 8
points and 4 boards for Manny Patterson. And, Coach, I thought he had 2 really big baskets late when they were making a run at you.
Yeah, and it was almost going to be another turnover, and he kind of stuck his hand out there and grabbed one in that last one that he scored when it was a 6-point game, or it was 6 or 7-point game, and that puts you back up in a comfortable margin when time was running out for Eastern while they were making that late push. So that was a huge bucket for us. And then the one before that was just as important too. So Manny's kind of – you always get to that point in your season, especially that fifth year, that senior guy, the guy that you can just count on, and Manny's been that guy. He's been very consistent for us the last 3 weeks, ever since Tennessee State, really, when he came back from his injury, and he finally jumped for the jump ball. So he's starting to get a little bit healthier and healthier and healthier as it goes. So you want to see Manny have. You always want to see your senior. You want to see everybody play well, but particularly your fifth-year seniors, because again, it's coming down. It's winding down for him. You want to see him have success, and we need him to have success because we need that we need to be able to control the paint offensively and defensively.
And people are always fascinated with the big man. I mean, when they see 6'10", they want to know, okay, is this guy a project, or is he a guy that has pretty good footwork? People always want to know about the big guy. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from Sam Thompson. Not his best game against Eastern, but he's a freshman, and sometimes freshmen look like they're guys that are going to be on the all-OVC freshman team, and the next game they look like a freshman. I mean, that's why they're freshmen. What about Sam Thompson? What do you see? Because he looks like he's got tools to be an impact guy in the post.
He does, and unfortunately for him, he's had injury, then he had illness, and so he's kind of, every time he's maybe started to make his stride and his progress, it's just something else has happened. So it was his hand early in the year. And then he was really making progress. He's obviously starting for us because he has his skill set and he can move and he's mobile and he's got good touch and all that. So I've seen him basically, as you said it probably best, Eric. He's been a freshman. He's had the ups and the downs, and unfortunately for him, I thought maybe when he was starting to go through that little freshman spell, every freshman goes through it. Then he comes out in California and plays really, really well after only having practiced a couple times from his injury. And then he got illness. So he never really has had that long stretch to where he could kind of play through some mistakes as a freshman and hit that freshman lull. He's kind of played well, injury or illness, play well, injury, illness. And so he hasn't had so now I think you started to see finally a duration or a couple weeks to where now the true freshman toll starts to take effect. And so now hopefully he's going to get back on the other side of that and committing himself back to, he'll come in and work out individually with Coach Pick, which is a good thing. That's a positive sign. And, I think sometimes too, especially big guys, you just get caught up in I just do what I do because I'm a big guy. And now it's like, I want to do this because I'm a basketball player. And so I think I've seen a little bit of that, Sam, here in the last couple of weeks of really be like, okay, you know what, I'm a basketball player. I'm not just going to be a big guy. And that's a positive.
You did get some bad news, though, and it involves the post. It looks like Nate Johnson is not going to be able to help you this year. Everybody's seen him in street clothes over on the bench, but bad news for Nate Johnson.
Yeah, and it looks like he is going to be out for the year. He had a procedure done today. Everything went well, but it's going to probably keep him out for the rest of the season. Unfortunately for him, again, you always see it with big guys and injuries, unfortunately. But Nate was another one of those guys that was making progress, then he'd have an injury, making progress, then have an injury. So kind of a weird deal in his foot, just a weird injury, and got it taken care of. So hopefully he can bounce back and be better than he's been before.
So with Nate Johnson, now explain to us how the redshirt rules work. Now, we know that if any player plays 1 minute of one game, then they cannot redshirt. Medical redshirts are different. Nate played in 11 games this year. What's his status?
Yeah, it's all based upon a percentage of games played. And I think I should know, it's 20, 25 or 30%. So once you've played more than that percentage of games. So I think for us, this is all obviously going under the intention that the conference tournament isn't there. So I think that would put us at about 8 games. So Nate would have had to have played in 8 or fewer games in order to be able to qualify for the medical redshirt. So he was over that, unfortunately. But then obviously you go to postseason, and if the more games that you can add to your games at the end of the season, they can maybe cover that up. So it could be a situation, we get to the OVC conference tournament, we win 3 games, we go to the NCAA tournament, win 5 games, and now you've added 9 extra games.
You've played enough games
exactly
to where
right.
he falls
right,
under the
right.
criteria.
So that's basically how that goes. But it's a percentage of games that you have to be under in order to qualify for that medical redshirt.
And I know you personally would really – I know you're playing a lot of games here. You get 3 this week. You personally would love to see that Tennessee Tech game made up, a home game that you lost and Tennessee Tech was the opponent.
Yeah, I actually have to talk to somebody and ask that question because I was looking at their schedule and they don't have a Monday game the next 2 Mondays like we don't. So to me, there's a Monday open, and let's play. We need to play.
And that's what they've designated, though. It's got to be on a Monday, right?
Right. And so obviously it goes in succession of when you've lost those games. And so the first one you lost will be the first one made up, et cetera. So I was looking at the schedule actually today. We're looking at it in the office, and they don't have a game scheduled for the next Monday. So hopefully we can maybe get that thing on the schedule.
So I'm sure you saw it, but Tennessee Tech had Belmont down by 20 points in Cookeville, and Belmont came back and hit a late 3 to send it into overtime, and Belmont beat them in overtime. But that just shows you, even Belmont, who's an elite in this league, it's hard to win on the road.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And we talked about it after the Eastern game, Eric. It's just there's been so many weird, crazy scores this year. It's just, one team will win by 20, another team will win by 20, and there's been a lot of scores all over the place. But I think that game too was postponed at the beginning. at least when I checked as soon as our game ended. So I don't know what all was going on there, but they play well at home. Tech plays well at home, and they've scored the ball. And I don't know.
There was a stretch where SEMO didn't win at Tech for like 10 years. Yes, they defend that center, the Eblin Center.
Yeah, they do. Coach, even a year ago they had played well at home. So anytime you go on the road college basketball, OVC, Big 12, it doesn't matter. It's hard.
Well, you're going to be on the road tonight, the Vidal Bean Center in Edwardsville, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, you've seen their venue. It's a nice little venue. It's nice and cozy, fairly modern. A few years ago, they had an issue with their roof where they had to replace their floor 2 different times because of leaking, and it destroyed the floor. Anyway, the big news coming out of their campus, they have the leading scorer in the Ohio Valley Conference, Rayshon Taylor, and they released a statement yesterday. He has torn his ACL. He did it at the Show Me Center. He actually got hurt twice in that game. One time in the first half where he banged his elbow and had to leave the game, and then he came back in a few minutes later. And then in the very late stages of the second half, he went down on the baseline, limped off the floor, and was sitting on the bench with an ice bag on his knee and could not be in the game at the end for the Cougars. But he did not play last year because he tore the ACL in his right knee. It's the same ACL this year. What a bad break.
Yeah, you feel terrible for him. Any injury, you want to play people. You want to compete and play against people at full strength. So you feel bad for him. Not only them and their team, but obviously having suffered the same injury back-to-back years. I'm sure that's very disheartening for him. And you knew something probably wasn't right because there was no contact on the injury. And anytime you see someone go down with a knee on non-contact, you fear for the worst. And unfortunately for him and them, it was that. And I saw him after the game actually in the hallway, and he was walking down the hallway limping. I said, "Hey, are you all right?" And he's like, "I hope so." And unfortunately, they got bad news.
Boy, and it's not just any player. I mean, he's an elite player in this conference. He had 25 points against you, and he scored – in the first half, there was a stretch where he took over and scored about 10 points in about 4 minutes. I mean, this is one of the best players in the conference.
Yeah, and really scored them all kinds of ways. He hit a BOB 3, flying to the top of the key. He had 2 layups off ball screens that were really difficult finishes. So he can score in a lot of different ways and is a tough cover. He was leading the OVC in scoring, and then he also, I think, was leading the country in freshman scoring. So he's really a tough cover, and obviously their record doesn't show it, but they've been competitive in every single game. After our game, they go down to Austin Peay, and they should have probably won that game, losing double overtime. Took Moorhead to a 3-point game at Moorhead. They've been very, very competitive. So it's not going to be, you lose Rayshon Taylor, you're 1-7 or whatever their OVC record is. SEMO, you've been playing well, you'll just roll up there and win a game tonight. That's not how it goes. And so they're going to be tough and competitive. And as everybody goes, we've won games without Eric Reed. We won a game without Phil Russell. Everyone else just rises to the occasion, next man up mentality, and they'll be ready to go. So it's just another opportunity for someone else on their team to step up and fill that void.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. With all your years in college basketball, how many times have you seen a big player go down and all of a sudden the team rallies? Now, sometimes it doesn't turn into a sustained rally for the rest of the year, but in the short term, sometimes teams do rally.
Yeah, absolutely. We had 7 players. I say 7 because Chase, at the time that we played Evansville at home, hadn't practiced for 2 days prior to that game. He just came and played in the game. But, Eric Reed had the flu, and he didn't play in that Evansville game. And you're thinking, well, how are we going to find a way to win this game with 7 players? But everyone just rises to the occasion. DQ has stepped up time and time again for us in those situations, Evansville and in Edwardsville, when Phil didn't play the last time. So, again, that makes your team. That's the beautiful thing about basketball, is a team sport, and the next guy's got to be ready to go. And there's just not a huge drop-off from one guy to the next, and I think that's what makes your unit and your group tough to deal with.
You mentioned Coach Pickens a few moments ago, and, oftentimes in basketball, when there's a coaching turnover, none of the coaches retain their jobs. I mean, it's up to the new coach. So it was your decision about whether or not you wanted to keep Keith Pickens on your staff. Boy, it's turned out to be a really smart decision by you, hasn't it?
Yeah, and obviously our paths crossed when I was at Missouri State when he was a player. So my first year as an assistant at Missouri State was his senior year, and then he stayed on as a graduate assistant at Missouri State. So the last 2 years that I was an assistant there, and then when I left to go to Kansas State, he then took my position as an assistant. And obviously knowing Coach Lusk, Paul Lusk, who was the head coach at the time, just always staying in contact with those guys. And so you just saw there's always a way and a walk and a talk about a guy, how they approach the business. Obviously, he's a great family man, 4 kids. All those things matter to me because if you can do those, if you can be a good dad, you're going to be a good basketball coach. And so I think that those things all line up. And he was always a guy that I was going to have interest in. You know, you start making your little list in your mind about, okay, I think I want to become a head coach. Well, who would your staff be? And it was so important to me of surrounding guys that knew who I was, that I've been in contact with before, that knew who. You know, when you get into those situations or you've lost 3 games straight or you're in that office trying to figure things out and you're in a tough spot, you know, you need to have people that have your back. And Keith and Sam and Dustin are all guys that I came across with before. So it's been – the staff has been – I couldn't be more pleased with what they've done and the work that they put in, the way that they go about approaching the game as professionals, but also the way that they go about approaching relationships with the players. And they all do a fantastic job with that.
Now, Coach Pickens can still dunk. Can you still dunk?
Yes, I can, no
Okay.
matter what Joe Hobbs tries to say or what kind of video he may try to show
I heard
you.
somebody coughing up some lung butter back there. That must have been Joe.
Yeah, I did try and practice one day, and I had the wrong shoes on, so I'm gonna hold tight to that. But I absolutely can dunk.
How tough is it for you to get clothing? You're 6 feet 9 inches tall. You just can't go to Walmart and pick out a pair of pants, can you?
Well, the good thing is Evan Morrison, who played for us last year, is here, and thankfully for his generation, now all my clothes that are too small that don't fit me are now considered to be in style. So like today, I'm wearing these pants that don't even come close to touching my ankles, but that's considered cool or in style now. So I guess because I'm tall and can't find clothes that fit, I look like I'm in style.
If you hold on to a piece of clothing long enough, it'll come into style 3 times.
Well, unfortunately, I am getting older, and it's starting to come that way. Maybe we need to get some of these guys to go back to the French roll. That was back in my early days. The
High
French
school,
roll of the blue
yes.
jeans.
I remember the French roll of the blue jeans. So seriously, though, I mean, you got to do you have to special order about everything?
A lot of stuff.
Do we have a big and tall man store here in Cape?
We do.
Okay.
That's been one positive, though, with the COVID and the pandemic, is the suits have kind of gone away. So Under Armour actually has talls. Extra large tall is basically what I wear. So they actually have a pretty significant selection of tall clothing. So I'm able to get lucky there with Under Armour.
All right, it's SIU Edwardsville tonight. Coach, you put 85 points on the board when you beat them at the Show Me Center here. And let's see, that was January 29th, so it's a real recent game. I mean, it's just over a week ago. Today is the 7th. So you scored 85 points in that game. What are the things that jumped out to you when you beat them at the Show Me Center?
To me, it was I said after the game, I didn't think that we had played particularly well. It seemed to me there wasn't a great flow to it. But able to win a game that didn't feel that there was a great flow or that everything was going perfectly. You would think, we scored 85 points. Offense was flowing, defense was good, but there just was – it seemed a little choppy, but we still found a way to win, and we won. We controlled the game. It never really felt like we had to play miraculously, the last 3 minutes in order to come up with the win, or we didn't play poorly in the first half and then great in the second half. I thought we played a complete game even though it was choppy, so I was encouraged by that. I don't remember exactly what the free throw totals were.
28 out of 39. You outscore them 28-14. We'll see how this game goes tonight. It's almost impossible to get to the free throw line 39 times on the road. The road team, I mean, that's not going to happen tonight.
Right. I wouldn't anticipate that. And they were fouling late, as they're making their push, so that accounts for about 6 of them. But we still did a good job of getting to the foul line in that game. And really, what stood out to me probably in that game more than anything, coming into that game, they were averaging whatever it was on the rebounds. They were really rebounding the ball well.
Yes,
and
they were.
We out-rebounded them in this game. So we didn't rebound well against Eastern. in our last game, so that's going to have to be, we're going to have to really rebound the ball as a team, as a group. So that's going to be very, very important. And then obviously you can't, we talked about it before, but we can't turn the basketball over. That's got to be, we got to go back to what we have done before, because obviously when you have an offensive team the way that we do, assisting the way that we do, obviously if you turn the basketball over 16 times, that's X amount of possessions that you don't even get a shot up. So we have to limit those, and you can't turn the ball over like that on the road and expect to win.
Well, in the first game, you forced them into 14 turnovers, and you did a nice job in the Martin game too. You're taking turnovers and getting points. You outscore them 19-4 in points off turnovers in the game at the Show Me Center. That's one thing you guys have done well, taking turnovers and making them count. Yeah,
and I think that, again, we've talked a lot about our offense and where we score, this, that, and the other, and we shoot threes. But I think the main thing that gets lost a little bit in that is, and I talked about it a little bit earlier today, is where else can you steal points? You got special teams in football, but for basketball, can you get points at the foul line, which we do. BOBs, baseline out of bounds. We're able to get a couple layups a game off of that. And then now transition, turning people over and then converting in transition, getting them to miss a shot and then score in transition. So if you can get, 14 points with all those factors, that just obviously helps everything else, because now teams are going to put so much emphasis on, okay, well, they shoot threes or they get to the foul line. And well, now if you're getting points in transition, if you're getting points at the foul line, if you're getting points on BOB execution, now that's another 14 points that, other people may not be accounting for. That those things help your offense just as much as maybe being able to make a three or whatever the case may be statistically that you can look at or put your finger on. Those other things are hard to put your finger on and make you a more efficient and a better offensive team.
So you out-rebound them, SIU Edwardsville, 38-30. Nigel Russell has 11 rebounds. Why is he such a good rebounder? Because you look at, he's 6'4". Why is he among the best rebounders in the OVC at his size?
I think he's done a really good job of understanding, one, that we need a niche. We need a role of a guy to do that on our team. And so I think that the more that he understands it, he just has a knack for the ball. Dennis Rodman, one of the best rebounders of all time in the NBA, wasn't overly tall for the NBA. Charles Barkley, those guys just have a knack for the ball. And I think, too, when you play and you accept a role, or Eric Reed, if someone passes to Eric Reed and he's got a little bit of daylight, he's probably shooting that basketball, so I'm going to go get the rebound. And Nigel doesn't necessarily – and you play with a Phillip Russell and a DQ Nicholas, well, those guys are going to be getting back in transition. So he knows as soon as the shot goes up, my only job is to go crash the offensive glass. So it makes it that much easier for him, but he has a size and an athleticism and a knack for the ball that sometimes, more than sometimes, it's rebounding is just more just desire and heart. And sometimes you just have to go get it. And he does a great job for us doing that.
And Eric Reed in the game, he and DQ led you in scoring against SIUE. 18 points for Eric Reed in a game where he did not hit a three-point basket, but he made 10 free throws in the game, man. I mean, that was as aggressive as I've seen him in a game this year against the Cougars.
Yeah, and we talk about being a complete player and a three-level scorer, being able to get to the foul line, be able to hit mid-range pull-ups, not just being a specialist catch-and-shoot guy. And, again, obviously that's going to be the book, and the number one thing on Eric in the scouting report is that you can't let this kid shoot. And so now being able to mix it up and get into the paint, he's strong. We talk about 2 feet all the time. He's one of our best guys at playing off 2 feet in the paint. And so now he's always under control. He can get around the rim. He's strong. And getting to the foul line, 10 of 12 in that game, it's just going to open up the game. And actually going back even a year ago, Eric, at Edwardsville, he wasn't shooting it particularly well in that game a year ago. He got fouled, goes to the foul line, makes 1 of 2 from the foul line, but now the very next trip down the floor, he hits a 3, and now he gets going a little bit offensively. So for a guy like him, okay, I'm not shooting the 3 well. Now let me get to the foul line, get my mechanics, see one go through the net. Now it can open everything else back up for him.
And Chris Harris shot 14 free throws in that game against SIUE. Is there anyone more theatrical when he gets fouled on a drive than Chris Harris? I mean, he's been called for flopping a couple of times this year. Those are on three-point shots, though. The old Reggie Miller kick your leg out move, and go down. And, sometimes you get the call. Sometimes you get called for a flop. But is there anyone more theatrical when he gets fouled than Harris?
I don't think so. And sometimes he's hit his head pretty hard doing all that. And he's one of the bigger, stronger guys too.
Yeah.
And so he should be able to take a bump and give a bump and get to the foul line that way without doing all that. We talk about all the time, don't move the ball, go straight up. He's too big and strong as a guard to be, shooting from outside his shoulders. So we try to emphasize that. We really tried to emphasize it in the Moorhead game. The ball's in his hands late there. That's a perfect opportunity to drive. We're in the double bonus, get to the foul line because he's got a picture-perfect jump shot. Chris has really, really nice form on his jump shot.
Yeah, he's got a clinic for a jump shot. Their point guard hurt you a little bit in that game. Courtney Carter, he finished with 15 points in the basketball game. Interestingly, only one assist, but that's a guy that really makes their whole offense kind of do what it does.
And especially now without Rayshawn, another guy out there, he's going to have to elevate his game, and the ball's going to be in his hands more. And then they've got a good freshman, Pruitt, a good freshman, big guy who shoots threes. He shoots about 3 threes a game. Rebound, he's one of the top 3 or 5, I think, in the league in rebounding. So they've got some nice pieces. They're just a little bit young and obviously got hit by the injury. So, again, they're way better, and coaches always say that stuff, but they're way better than what the record shows.
All right, and Austin Peay also, and then Belmont comes in on Saturday. So those games will all take place before we get together in Jackson next week for next week's Coaches Show. But a chance – Belmont just showed that they're vulnerable on the road. Now, I know they won the game at Tech, but they were down 20, and it took overtime. And I'm sure your team remembers that game, and guys play with a lot of pride. I bet your team is really looking forward to getting a crack at Belmont.
Yeah, I think so. Tonight, obviously, is a huge, huge game because it's the next one. Thursday will be just as big because it's the next one. But, yeah, you've got Belmont coming in. And I don't know the last time Belmont's been here because I think for the last 3 years we've been at their place.
Right.
And they're leaving the league, and so it's your last time to, be able to play them.
It sets up for having a nice crowd Saturday night.
We're 7-1 in our last 8 games at the Show Me, and, we've put ourselves in a pretty good spot here with 7 games left in the conference standings. And so there's a lot, can go a lot of different ways, but hopefully if we take care of business tonight and play the way that we can and carry that over to Thursday, hopefully there's a big momentum and big swing and big excitement for that game on Saturday.
All right, it's 8 o'clock tonight. The Red Hawks play at SIU Edwardsville, and of course we'll have the game on the Red Hawks Radio Network and Real Rock 99.3 FM. Coach, thanks so much. We'll talk to you later tonight. Good luck tonight against the Cougars.
All right, thank you, Eric.
All right, that's Coach Brad Korn. Appreciate his time, and don't forget 8 o'clock for the tip-off, and we will be back at the Show Me Center on Saturday night for the Belmont Bruins. The Red Hawks play at Austin Peay on Thursday. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. ESPN Radio to follow. So long from Wings, etc.